everyone, it's Emily, and today I wanted to do a quick tag video. So I saw Reading with Mo do this back in November for Nonfiction November, which would be the more appropriate time to do this since it's a tag about nonfiction books. But I read and loved another nonfiction book recently, and I've just been thinking about nonfiction books recently and what goals I have for myself for reading my nonfiction books. So I just felt like it was a tag I wanted to do regardless of when I actually did it. So I just decided to go ahead and do this tag about nonfiction books. It was originally created by Olive from A Book Olive. I'll be sure to link the original video down below, as well as Mo's video, which is how I first found the tag. And yeah, let's get into the questions. So the first question is, how much nonfiction do you read? So I used to read a ton of nonfiction. In fact, I probably used to read mostly nonfiction. I definitely read a good amount of fiction as well, but it just was so intimidating to try to figure out what all in the entirety of fiction I wanted to read, and just to try to delve into different genres and kind of figure out what tropes I liked and just figure out the huge expanse of the fiction universe. That was just intimidating to me for some reason, and it was actually less intimidating for me to just pick a topic I was interested in and then find some books that were about that topic and read them. So I've read a ton of nonfiction for most of my life. So it's really been with Booktube and just being out of school that has kind of allowed me to get back into fiction and kind of help me narrow down what kinds of fiction I might be interested in, and at least kind of start to taste different genres and different things that I find interesting. And so I haven't read as much nonfiction in the past couple of years as I typically do, but I'd like to kind of rebalance that a little bit and just continue to add a bit more nonfiction to what I read, because I do have a ton of nonfiction that I would like to get to, so I'd like to kind of bring that back in a little bit. The second question is, what kind of nonfiction videos have you made or would you like to make for your channel? And for this one, I think it would be fun to do some themed vlogs or something where I just pick a time, pick a few nonfiction books, and kind of make a vlog out of it. I think that would be really cool. And then of course there's Nonfiction November that, you know, could be something that I integrate some nonfiction into, and yeah, there could be some fun ideas around that for videos. But yeah, I don't know if there are other ideas what kind of cool nonfiction videos people do besides, you know, obviously, you know, wrap-ups and kind of talking about the books and how you enjoyed them is one thing, but kind of, you know, I would love to have some ideas for what other kinds of ways you can incorporate nonfiction books into some really cool videos. So the third question is, what is your favorite subgenre of nonfiction? So I typically read, I'm a huge environmentalist, I'm very passionate about climate change, so I definitely read a lot about environmentalism and climate change and energy in particular, both science and policy books. So I also really love memoirs. That's something I've also kind of always been interested in. I love reading memoirs of just people I find interesting. And I also just love politics books and books about feminism, some philosophy books, but depends. But I do love books about politics and feminism, and yeah, those are, I think, the main things are environmental books, memoirs, and like politics, feminism stuff. So the fourth question is, do you have a favorite nonfiction book? So I'm trying to think back, and these are just some ones that stick in my mind from semi-recently that I've read. So one favorite one that I read super recently and talked about it in my January wrap-up, I'll be sure to link that, is The Library Book by Susan Orlean. Freaking love this book. Definitely, as I said, check out my wrap-up to get my full thoughts on it. I also really love, and I actually mentioned this book when I was talking about The Library Book because the writing style really reminded me of The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Kolbert, and actually both of Elizabeth Kolbert's books that I've read. Yeah, so Elizabeth Kolbert is another favorite nonfiction author who writes a lot about environmental issues, so her books are also huge favorites. Those are kind of the ones that are just immediately jumping to mind. There are also some really cool memoirs that I've absolutely loved. And these include, of course, Becoming by Michelle Obama. I also really love The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. And also, actually while I've had this channel, have read Radium Girls by Kate Moore, and this was also a fascinating story about a group of women. Yeah, so those are some standout nonfictions that I guess I've read recently enough to like fully recall enjoying. So yeah. The fifth question is, what keeps people from wanting to read nonfiction? And I think part of it is that some of it is just very dryly written, and that can turn someone off if a story is not told in an engaging or interesting way. And I mean, of course, fiction books can also be told in a non-engaging, non-interesting way. But, you know, sometimes it's easier for nonfiction books to kind of just be like a series of facts, and as you're reading it, you feel like you need to memorize every single sentence to actually get something out of the book, and otherwise it just kind of becomes a blur of information that doesn't really stick. And so, at least to me, so some of it's just this dryly written, or just kind of seems like a bunch of information you're never gonna fully remember all of the details of, even if you want to. And there's also, of course, a lot of nonfiction read for school, and so if you're forced to read it, sometimes it can just kind of be something that turns you off of trying to read something like that later, even if, you know, reading about history is something that you really love, even if you didn't love your history textbook, but maybe you would love books about a particular era that you're interested in or something. So I think that's part of why some people can be turned off by nonfiction. So the sixth question is, why do you love reading nonfiction? And the simple answer is that I just love learning about the world, and I just love just people pouring their heart and soul and their passion into trying to make the world better by telling people a story that can impact how people see the world, or the way they behave, or the kinds of things they think about, and the people that or the situations they're aware of and want to help out with. And so I love learning about the world, and I think it's just an incredible way to help people learn about the world and use that information to make the world better. So that's why I love nonfiction. So the seventh question is, what are some nonfiction books that you have read because of Booktube? And I think there definitely are a couple. So I mentioned The Library Book by Susan Orlean. That one I actually first really heard about from Read by Zoe, and she raved about it. But yeah, Zoe read it, and it basically talked about it helping her kind of think about what she wanted to do with her life. And it was just so cool to hear her talk about it, and you know, who knows if she wants to become a librarian or not, but it's just so fun to see someone talk about a book that just impacted them so much that it's possibly going to impact their career. So that was a lot of fun to read about. Yeah, so Library Book was definitely one that I heard about from Booktube. I also heard about Not That Bad by Roxane Gay. I'll put an image here. From Booktube, I don't remember who I first saw talk about that book, but I first saw it from a Booktube video and checked to see if my library had an audiobook copy of it. Maybe it was in someone's audiobook Rex or something. I really can't remember where I first heard it, but that one I definitely also first heard about on Booktube, and really enjoyed that one as well. So that's another nonfiction one that I have read recently that I really enjoyed. And the eighth question is, what's the best nonfiction book you've read lately? And the most recent one I've read is The Library Book. So I guess that's my answer, because that's at least the one most recently that I've read, and also happened to really enjoy it. So that one, I guess. And question number 9 is, what are some of your reading goals pertaining to nonfiction? So I think I would definitely, as I said, I want to kind of make sure I'm putting nonfiction back in my TBRs. And I think even just a goal of at least one nonfiction book a month, I think that's super doable. So I think just at least putting in that conscious effort to make sure I'm adding one nonfiction book a month on average. I think would be, for the moment, a good goal, just because I also know that I have so many fiction books on my shelf that I'm really excited to get to, so I'm not going to neglect all the fiction that's on my shelf too, just to read all of my nonfiction. And I'm really excited about a lot of my fiction books, so, you know, I'll progressively restore that balance, but I think just adding one, maybe two nonfiction books a month will really, really help, and I'll feel pretty good about that. So, and the final question, question number 10, is what advice do you have for incorporating more nonfiction kind of into people's reading diets? So my go-to is just to advise people to read what they're interested in. It's going to be very difficult to get people to want to pick up nonfiction books about stuff that they're just not interested in, which is totally fine. So find something you're interested in, whether it's, you know, a particular, you know, area of history you're interested in, or a particular group of people that you're interested in, or you know, different time periods or different subjects like environmental issues. Just find stuff you're interested in, because there's probably going to be someone writing about that, and just explore, you know, just see what's out there and see if something grabs your attention, starting with what you're already interested in, just kind of going from there. And the bonus question is to give some recommendations for any booktuber you follow that reads a good bit of nonfiction. And the first person that comes to mind is Jean from Jean Bookish Thoughts. I absolutely love her channel so much, but she definitely reads quite a bit of nonfiction. She reads a lot about politics, she reads a lot about feminism as well, she reads a lot about environmental issues, so I've gotten some really good nonfiction recs from her. She also reads a lot about ancient history. She is an ancient historian and is working on that for her PhD, so she reads a lot about history and a lot about feminism in history. Anyways, she reads a lot of really cool books for her PhD and just in general her interests. And so, yeah, she's definitely someone that I have gotten a lot of really good nonfiction recs from. And yeah, so that's it. Just a short and sweet video about nonfiction books. And I, as I said, definitely hope to be incorporating these throughout the year. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you so much for watching. Do you have any responses to these questions? Are you trying to read more nonfiction, or do you read a lot of nonfiction? What kind of nonfiction stuff do you like to read? Definitely let me know in the comments below, or let me know your answer to any of these questions. And yeah, be sure to subscribe for more bookish content. I'll also leave my Twitter and Instagram link down below. That's where I like to hang out. And I'll also link my personal Twitter and Instagram and my climate channel below as well. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.